Welcome to day 18 of our devotions. This morning again we see adultish behaviour. We're going to look at Matthew chapter 15. Before we get into the reading, let me set you the scene. Adultish behaviour, remember, is focused on rules, because in that way we can just kind of find loopholes and skirt the rules. I'm looking at, I haven't even quite started, but it's April, a couple of months, and I've just been looking at my tax to see what's coming up as we get closer to that end of financial year. And I'm looking at some of the rules and thinking, what can I get around? This is adultish behaviour. Instead, childish behaviour is based on relationship. It's based on relationship. Whereas adultish behaviour is based on the rule. And when you have the rule, you try and get as close as possible to the rule without going over the line. This sets the scene and helps us understand what Jesus is saying here in chapter 15, because he castigates adultish behaviour and says, instead, obey from the heart. Listen to chapter 15, Matthew. Jesus was approached by the Pharisees from Jerusalem, and they asked, "Why do your disciples break the tradition of the elders? For they don't wash their hands when they eat." And he answered them, "Why do you break God's commandment? Because of your tradition. Because it says, 'Honour your father and mother,' but you say, 'Whatever benefit you might have received from me is a gift committed to the temple. He does not have to honour his father.' In this way you nullify the word of God because of your tradition, you hypocrites." Jesus here says, the Pharisees I should say, come up to Jesus and say, your followers, your children of the Father, the people who have been listening to you and have this alternative kingdom, they don't wash their hands. This has got nothing to do with COVID and the corona crisis, but of course they're saying there's a tradition and a way of behaving, and you need to wash your hands. These are the rules. This is how that you are to be with God. You are to be clean before God, and this is how you approach God. And Jesus says to them, hey, you have your traditions. And in fact, let me tell you about your traditions. You have this thing called korban, which means you can say, if I have a gift to give and I give it to God and I leave it on the altar, then I don't really have to give a gift to my parents and honour them. And it's a way of having these rules and getting around kind of tax time loopholes, getting around things and saying, I don't really have to honour my parents, especially if I don't like them and things aren't going really well. Instead, I can leave a gift to God and a sacrifice to God at the altar. This is what they were doing in those days. And Jesus says, tell your disciples to do this. Your followers, the followers of the Pharisees, to do this, to leave a gift and give it to God. Burn it rather than give it to your parents, and you don't honour God by honouring your parents. Jesus is saying, by your rules and your traditions, you don't really love God. And his big conclusion is pretty simple, and he says it here. Listen to this. Verses 8 and 9. You hypocrites, you people that honour me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. They worship me in vain, teaching as doctrines human commands. Jesus is saying, of course, that it's about relationship. Worship is about relationship, and being adultish is focused on the outside and focused on skirting around rules and things just to be right enough with God and to appear to be right enough with God. But Jesus says really it's about the heart and about relationship with God. And so that's again this morning's devotion on being childish and being people who love God, who worship him from the heart, not because we have to or because of rules and things like that, but because of his grace. We don't look for loopholes. Instead, we try to connect with God and we love him and worship him. That's it for this morning. Tomorrow we'll continue on being adultish, focused on the outside. Part 1 was today, and part 2, being focused on the outside, will be tomorrow. See you then.